Hello and welcome to another episode. In this episode, we're going to be prepping Smokey for DSA round 2. Its first drift comp. There's a lot of work to get done to it because although shakedown went well, it's definitely not ready for competition use yet. There's a lot of work to be done. So I've got a whole heap of parts that have come to make the car a bit better. In particular, one quite expensive part that's going to change the car, I think, for the better and stop us making so many money shifts. So the first thing we're going to talk about in this episode is one that I'm really excited about. It was rather expensive, like just below $3,000 Australian expensive. But after the issues we had at the shakedown with me going for third and getting first gear, I think it's going to be a very good investment, not only for the insurance of the engine, but also for me changing gears. And that is the S1 Sequential shifter that I've just got. So Dad's run away with it. He's gone somewhere to measure some stuff up so that we can cut a hole in the car and fit it. But that's going to be very exciting for me. Obviously, the money shift problem that I had before, it's going to solve that. It's also going to solve me struggling to get through the gate when I go from second to third or vice versa. So it's going to make me a lot more competitive and shift's going to be a lot easier, which is going to be important for me. So really excited. That shifter actually started the thought process that led to Smokey. Originally, we were going to put a T56 onto the CA with the 180SX and put that shifter on it so that I wasn't missing gears. Eventually, that did become too difficult and it was clear that wasn't going to be the path, and that led us down the road to Smokey. So we've got that shifter to fit up. I'll go find Dad, then we can start cutting a hole in the floor so we can fit it on there.
Is I cut the shape out of the top part, which is only just an outer piece.
Yep.
And then I actually cut it in like that, the underneath bit.
Yep.
And then I'm hoping to fold the outer bit up, so it'll create a seal.
Yep.
Or, make it mendable, if you know what I mean. I don't know if it'll make a difference or not, but I'd rather give it a go. God, it's flimsy. My God, this car's flimsy.
Yeah, there's not much of it. Well, things are never quite as easy as they should be. We took a look at where we were going to cut the hole for the S1 Sequential, and it wasn't centralized in the tunnel, which was going to make things difficult. We ended up loosening up the trans mount for the actual gearbox, moving the gearbox across a little bit and tightening it back up. It's situated a lot better now, but it does mean that the headers don't actually bolt to the exhaust anymore, so that's another thing to solve. We do today have the hole cut out though, which is nice, one thing off the list. Will mean that next week is going to be pretty damn busy. We have to fit the S1 Sequential into the car, make sure it works. I've got a different size master cylinder coming for the hydraulic handbrake, so it's not as far before it engages. I think it's a 1-inch bore, so I get to bolt that one on and we've got to bleed all that up. Then also fix up the header issue, check the oil and do all that stuff. And then later on in the afternoon at 5 o'clock, we've got to be out at Malala to drift this thing, so at Drift Prac. So a lot to get done in one day. But I'm up for the challenge. I'm very keen to drive it again. So let's cut to next week when we hopefully get all that done and get out to the track. Well, we've got the Sequential in the car now. We need to just go through the gears. I'll show you guys. That's neutral, first, second, third, etc. And then you've got second, first, neutral. So there's nothing like a last minute rush. We've got the Sequential shifter on the car now, and I've just driven up and down the street, tested it. It seems to work okay from my very limited drive up and down the street. Handbrake, that is got a lot less movement in it, but it may actually be a little too quick, or it may be a little bit too much effort required, but we'll work that out when we get out to the track. That's what test days are for. Now to load her up, put her on the trailer, head out to Malala. that day didn't really go to plan. We didn't get nearly as many laps as we wanted. The alternator ended up dying. I don't think it likes sitting pretty much at 6,200 for an entire lap. So that thing died. It was pretty new actually. It was brand new when we fitted it to the car. But it was an OEX one, so I don't know if that played a factor. Probably need to buy a new Delphi one and also get some kind of pulley that's bigger so it's not spinning as hard. So we'll get that done, but I only got about 7 laps in total. Did give me a good chance to test the couple of changes that we made to the car. First thing was obviously the S1 Sequential. I love it. It's actually really good. It wasn't hard to fit at all. We fit it in probably about an hour and a half and got it working. The biggest bit was actually cutting the floor out, because we fitted it by not even removing the gearbox. We just cut a hole in the floor that was the right size and bolted it on. Very easy to do, pretty much worked once we followed the instructions straight away. And I don't know if I'd put it in a street car because you have to be reasonably aggressive with it to drive it, but certainly for a track setup like this, I'm pretty damn happy with it. It is a little hard to press for me at the moment, so this is, we've got it laid back like this so that I can reach it. And if I push that in, first gear, second gear, third gear, and I think there's more gears in there, but it does like to be moving to get all of them sometimes, so. And that's back to neutral. So it is a little aggressive on the hand because this is round and it's quite hard, so we need to work on that. It actually shifts better when you're moving. I've noticed it's quite a lot happier, which kind of makes sense to me, but still a little bit of fiddling to go. Reverse was a little bit hard to find. It has to do with this lever up here. The next thing we needed to do was, I've got a 1-inch master cylinder on this bad boy back here for the handbrake. Problem is, that's about the amount of push that you can do for it. And it's actually, whilst that is good, the amount that I have to push this, even with the brake booster, or the brake booster behind my seat powering it, it's just a little hard on my hand. So we're going to get a different master cylinder. I think this one's going to be 7/8, which should be a bit better. Obviously, it's going to be a bit longer throw, but it's not going to hurt my hand after having to push it for a session or two. So overall, that was pretty good. I'm going to need a new alternator, which I'll get and shoot probably in the next couple of clips. And we're also going to need to do something about these levers, because neither of these are really set up for myself at all. They've just been things to get us through. So time to build some proper levers for myself before round 2, I reckon. Make sure that those controls are nice and easy to get to. Well, it's a new weekend. We've already made a start on the car. We've got the new master cylinder for the handbrake. That's the 7/8 bore handbrake. So that's in the car. We've already bled that up. I didn't show that because it's like the 3rd time that we've had to bleed up a master cylinder now. And it all gets a bit boring. So yeah, we've got that in the car. It's actually probably the perfect fit, I reckon. We did go up the street and I did test it, and it seems to work really well. A much better balance between power and not having to throw it too far. So quite happy with that. At the moment, Dad's making up the handbrake lever. Oops, you waved too soon. So he's making that up at the moment. I push on, it turns out about here. So Dad's making up a little bit of an adjuster for the top of that lever so that I can push it in the right place and we can move it forwards, backwards, left and right if we need to. So we're getting onto the handbrake side of things. On the gear shifter, Dad and I have already sort of figured that out. We actually thought we were going to have to put a lot more effort into the shifter for me than we thought, or actually ended up having to. Can't open this door with this hand. Don't laugh at me. So we did think we'll have to build something special for the gear shifter. What we've actually done though is scalloped out this section in here, which is where my hand can push on. And actually, because it's scalloped out, it sort of locates my hand rather than it trying to fly off the top or the bottom. So that's made our life a lot easier. I'll jump in the car and show you guys what that actually looks like in a sec. The next thing I need to do is when I originally got the SLR gear for the car, it came with these pieces here, and quite frankly I didn't know what they did. And I've been running the car with no lock stops because I didn't know how we had to put lock stops on the car. Turns out they're linked. These are actually the lock stops, so only took me about 6 months to figure that out, because I noticed that the rims are hitting on the car and hitting on the SLR arms, so that's not really ideal. So we're going to chuck these onto the rack now. That should stop the wheels hitting on the car. Car's up in the air. You can sort of see a bit of the damage that's happened. The rim has got a little bit of damage because it's actually hitting on the arm here. And also up here you can see the tyres taking away a whole heap of the paint. Same on this side. This tyre is actually a bit worse for wear because of it. So a bit of damage up there, and also a bit of a mark on the arms from the rim. So don't want that to continue. We've put in a couple of the lock stops already, which are these plastic things. They just push over the rack there. So we're just sort of adjusting it at the moment, making sure that we can still keep max lock that we want to use, but without it actually hitting the car and damaging it. So how'd you go with the lever?
All good. It's all tapped in. So we use the original handbrake, which had already been welded because you've made it from a pull to a push. So we originally, the pivot point was at the bottom and the tyre had ended to go in there to the master cylinder. We have to swap it over the other way. So now the pivot's there, and that's for the master cylinder. Strengthen that so we didn't have the same problems we had in the 180 when we broke it. So I'm pretty sure that's not going to break now. And because it was a push one, I need to put the paddle on top somewhere for your hand to go. So I just had to flatten out all the little bits and pieces there. Put a couple of bolts in there with some helicoils in it so they won't pull through. So it should be all ready to go.
Cool. So I think we've got the shifter and the handbrake all sorted now. If we take a look in the car, we've been just doing the last little touches to the shifter knob there, taking off any hard edges so it doesn't hurt my hand. That's come up looking pretty good. We've also got the roll pins that we had to install as a part of the S1 Sequential instructions down there. They're all installed. Handbrake lever is going to make my life a lot easier. It was always a struggle since I've driven this car to get the rear wheels to lock up. The lever was either too long or too hard to press, so that's good. And we've got the better master cylinder down there too. And I also have my power windows back now that we've got the right adjustment for the handbrake. So all looking pretty good. Next thing we need to do is get the alternator fixed. I've got a different size pulley coming for that, so when that comes from America, chuck it on the car, and hopefully we'll have a charging system again. So a new weekend, we've got a few bits and pieces. Unfortunately, the underdrive pulley is on back order in America and I couldn't get that in time, so that's a bit of a bugger. But I have got a new alternator. This is actually a genuine GM alternator, which is actually made by Mitsubishi Electric, so we've got all sorts of brands on this car. But hopefully, being a genuine alternator, it's going to be stand up to the rigors of limiter a bit better than the aftermarket one that I got from Retco. So I am really hoping this gets us through round 2. After that, we should get the pulley, and hopefully these things will live a bit longer.
Do you want me to hold it so that it can see you working on it?
No, this is going to be the hard part, so I think we're going to need more
You're gonna need more
hands
than
than
just
either
one
of
or
us
half
have.
hands.
Because I'm going to have to go through. This is go through like that. And then I'm not sure what to do now.
Do you need an adult?
I think you need to
You've also got it upside down.
Yeah, that's the only way you can get it in.
Okay.
Oh my god, there was some hand strength involved then. So I got the new alternator on, belts on. Let's see if we've got some battery voltage. I can't open this friggin' door handle with this hand. It doesn't work. I've done it several times now. We're trying to shoot. There we go. I just got to bend down and look like an idiot. So the alternator's on. Got the belt on now too. So let's see if we've got some alternator power. No bueno. That's not working. So we put the new alternator on and no bueno, it is not charging, which is a bit of an issue. Had a bit of a look into it off camera, and what we figured out was this plug here, which is the exciter wire for the alternator, the single crimp that's actually on this, because the other one's for the lamp, which we don't need because we don't have an alternator light. That crimp is actually on the wrong side for this alternator to excite it so that it actually starts charging, which I thought was a little odd because I definitely haven't repinned this plug since I had 14 volts with the old alternator. So sort of thought I might go home and pick up the old alternator, see what had happened. Looking at this and looking at the diagram, these pins are actually the opposite way around, left to right, compared to the new alternator. I don't know why, both of them for an LS1. They're supposedly supposed to be the same alternator. The only one thing is that is an aftermarket OEX and this is a genuine Mitsubishi GM part. So I really don't know what happened, but either way I'm going to have to swap around this pin now so that it actually excites the alternator and I actually have some power. Right, moment of truth for like the third time now. Well, nothing's ever as simple as it should be when it comes to cars, and I guess the alternator issue there was testament to that. Don't know why the two alternators were wired different, but evidently they were. We've got it sorted now. She's charging up real nice, so glad to get that done and dusted. I also did a bit of tidying up with the wiring. Obviously there's a lot more wiring tidying up that needs to happen with it, but only so many hours in a day. The car's pretty much ready other than an oil change for round 2, which is 2 weeks away. And I've got a trip to the Gold Coast in between now and then. So not a lot of time to get it ready, but also not much to get done. Really, really keen to take this thing out and drive it in a comp. Obviously this is going to be the first comp that Smokey's taken out in. Also going to be the Sequential's first proper drive. I've obviously driven it a little bit at Malala for a couple of laps, but I didn't have it really set up for me at all. So now that it's all set up, it'll be good to give it a go, see how it drives. And then I've got the master cylinder for the handbrake, which is going to be a new experience having a decent handbrake in this car. So really excited for that. I did take it out onto a closed road, which may have been my driveway or the road outside the house here, to just test the handbrake, and it does work really, really well now. It's got that new master cylinder on it, so that is going to be really good for me, and I'm really excited just to see how this thing goes into comp. So see you guys at the next episode, which is going to be Smokey heading out to round 2 and yeah, taking it for a thrash out there. So I'll see you in the next episode of Smokey and the One Arm Bandit.